YouTube, what's happening? It is Monday, May 20th. There are 12 baseball games to talk about today. But first, let's do a little recap on how yesterday went. 7-6, over 4 units of profit. Welcome to the bankroll. You can see we have been crushing it the last few days. That is 5 straight days of profit. That's hard to do in betting no matter what you're betting on. So we love to see it. We will take it anytime we can get it. The model has been absolutely crushing it. Now we got 12 games to talk about. The first one's a doubleheader between the Braves and the Padres. It starts at noon Eastern, so we need to jump into these. So let's go. All right, first game was going to be San Diego and the Braves, but with them starting at 12 Eastern, that is just terrible timing on a Monday. There's no way everybody's going to get to watch this and get some information before they place a bet, so I'm not going to include it. But I am. One thing I'm looking at definitely is Cease's K ladder. It's 6.5 right now. Atlanta striking out like crazy, and he strikes people out. So we're going to take the K ladder, looking a little bit at the under 7.5 and San Diego money line as well. All right, next up, we got the White Sox and the Blue Jays. We got Eric Feddy, however you say it, 260 against Barrios and his 282. Currently in the betting markets, we have Toronto at a 210 money line favorite, somewhere around there. Over under 7.5, a little bit of juice on the over. Main things that stand out in this one, Chicago, the White Sox are averaging 2.3 runs a game. Toronto's 3.5, both in the bottom 20 in the last week. Batting average wise, Toronto's batting 205, which is 25th in the majors. White Sox are 18th at 232. Both teams struggling to get hits. They are both not striking out that much. They're eighth. Toronto's only struck out 6 times a game. White Sox 7.3, both in the top 10. So they're being disciplined, but they're still not getting on base because the walks just aren't there. So they're swinging, they're hitting, and they're just not doing much with it. So, with the over-under being 7.5, I initially lean under because the runs add up to under. Both teams don't get on base that much, and when they do, they don't get walked, and their averages are low. So with the pitchers being as good, pretty good ERAs here too, and all the statistics line up to say take the under of 7.5, a little bit plus minus 110 juice. On the money line, I am looking Toronto's minus 200. I would lean that. Neither side screams better right now. We know Toronto has more talent than the White Sox, but right now statistically, they're close to equal in this one. So I wouldn't mess with Toronto on the money line. Maybe in a money line parlay for funds, I might throw that in there, but I'm not going to put anything like a minus 1.5 Toronto or anything. So only thing I'm looking at is under 7.5, and we will move on to the next one. All right, next up, we got the Mets and the Guardians. I got McGill in his 225 against Lively in his 306. Currently, betting markets, Guardians at a 125 money line favorite, over under 8.5 with some decent juice on the over. Stats wise, we have the Mets averaging 4.5 runs a game, Cleveland 5.2 runs a game over the last week. That puts the Mets in 15th. That puts the Guardians in 7th. Both teams can score. I see why the over under is 8.5 with a little bit of juice on the over now. Batting average wise, Cleveland's batting 252, which is 13th. Mets are batting 243, which is 17th. The only big difference is Cleveland is not striking out as they're getting walks. They're getting on base much more efficiently than the Mets. So that's the only real difference here. I see why it's closer to a pick 'em in this one. I lean Cleveland because we've seen McGill once. He's got 4 innings pitched with 225. We don't really know much about him. Lively is 306. He's pitched 32. We know what he can do. I'm leaning Cleveland just on the money line. I'm not going to put them in a money line parlay or anything because it's too iffy for that one, but I will take Cleveland money line. I will pass on the over-under, and there's no props I'm looking at in this one. Next up, we got the second game of the doubleheader. We got the Padres Braves Part 2. Vasquez in his 6.32 going up against Sale in his 2.54. Currently, I don't know what the betting markets are in my book because Hard Rock doesn't have them listed, but ESPN does, and ESPN is showing that 8.5 is the over-under. I don't know what the juice is, and the Braves are a minus 215 on the money line, which I can see that. Currently, we just talked about the Braves. We know how they're striking out, and San Diego's not. Issue is Vasquez is not a strikeout pitcher. He only has 11 Ks over 15 innings. However, Sale is a strikeout pitcher. Problem is San Diego ain't striking out like you would think. So that makes the wonder why 215 again. This one is weird. I don't like betting game 2 of doubleheaders because so much factors in what happened in game 1 of the doubleheader. Was it a long game? Did the bullpens get used a lot? What happens here? I tend to leave these alone unless maybe live bet it later on. But for right now, I'm going to pass on this game completely because I need to see how game 1 goes first before I can judge. So pass on this one, move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Milwaukee and Miami. We got Rossi with 461 and Weathers with 381. Currently, betting markets have it as a 135 favorite for the Brewers with the over-under of 8.5 with some juice on the under. Both teams lost their last game. The main thing I'm seeing is they are actually scoring runs. Milwaukee has 5.2 runs a game, which puts them in 7th in the last week. Miami has 4.8, which puts them at 13th, so that's good for Miami. Both teams are still hitting decently. Miami's right in the middle of the pack at 15th at 246, and Milwaukee is at 274. They have cooled off a little bit. That's a little concerning to watch. Stats-wise, on Ks and walks, they're about equal. Milwaukee's slightly better in the strikeout to walk ratio there. The main thing I am seeing here is that they are scoring runs, which does make sense with the over 8.5. Money line wise, I would lean Brewers just because one, we know they have better talent. And we fade Miami any chance we can get. And Milwaukee has better stats, so I'm going to take Milwaukee on the money line. I'm not going to put them in the money line parlay, nothing crazy like that, just because the stats aren't that good, but they are good enough to take a single straight bet. And I would actually lean, since they are scoring runs, I would lean the over in this one as well, because both pitchers, 461 and 381, that's inclined indicative saying that they're going to give up some runs. And I think we can get to the 9-run mark. So over 8.5 and money line for Milwaukee. Next up, we got the Twins and the Nationals. Lopez is 393 against Parker with his 309. Betting lines, we have the Twins at 170 with the Nationals plus 140. Over under 7.5 with some juice on the over. Main thing of seeing in this one, both teams are on some massive losing streaks. Minnesota's lost 6 in a row and Washington's lost 5 in a row. Someone's got to win today. Both teams are struggling to score runs. 1.5 runs for Minnesota. That is last in the majors in the last week. Washington, 2.67 is 25th. So both teams cannot score. They're both sitting on pitchers with three ERAs. So I am 100% taking the under in this one at 7.5 at plus money on top of that. I don't care anything, but the stats back everything up here. Batting average wise, Minnesota's batting 166, which is last. Washington's batting 196, which is 27th. Neither team can hit the ball. Neither team can score. Strikeout wise, both teams are averaging over 8 strikeouts a game, which puts them 15th and 21st. And walks wise, Minnesota is not doing anything walking. They're 1.8 walks a game, which is 28th. Washington, they're actually getting 3 walks a game, which puts them 8th. That's the only bright spot for them. Other than that, this game is just garbage. Both teams are terrible. If one team breaks out, I would be surprised. The statistics line up and say take the under. This might be a 1-0 snooze fest. I'm going to go with it under 7.5 next game. All right, next up, we got Boston and Tampa Bay. We got Tanner Houck with his 217 against Taj Bradley and his 246. We got a pitching matchup. Currently on the betting side, we're at a pick 'em. We don't know who's going to win. Over under 7.5 with some juice on the under, indicative of a pitching matchup. Looking at the stats here recently, both Boston won 1, Tampa lost 1. They're both decently scoring runs. Boston is scoring 5.3 runs a game. That puts them 5th in the last week in scoring runs. Tampa Bay 4-3, which puts them at 17th. Boston's averaging 259 batting, which is 11th, and Tampa is 220 batting, which is 22nd. So right now, Tampa Bay is downtrending. Boston is uptrending because of the way they're batting over the last week. Neither team is doing well strikeout-wise. They are swinging a lot and missing a lot. So looking at the strikeouts here, Tanner Houck's strikeout prop might be worth looking at because he has a pretty good ratio, and looks like Tampa Bay is striking out 11 times a game, which puts them at 29th in the major. So yeah, we're going to do a Tanner Houck ladder today and see how that works out. Walks wise, Tampa Bay is walking. They do that. They're 3.3. They're 6th in the majors, but they're still swinging at everything. When they see it, they're just missing. So lean wise, I'm going to lean Boston on the money line. We're going to do a Houck ladder, and then over under wise, with the way both teams are scoring runs, I don't see the under hitting. I don't even trust the over under this one on any side in this one. So Boston money line and Houck ladder are going to be the plays in this game. All right, next up, we got Detroit and Kansas City. Olsen, 209. Waka, 471. Betting markets have the Royals as a slight favorite with a little bit of juice on the over at 8.5. Main thing, both teams are scoring 5 runs a game for both of them over the last 7 games, puts them at 10th in the majors. Both teams top 10 in batting average with 276 for Detroit and 264 for Kansas City. Kansas City's a little bit better in the walks and strikeout ratio than Detroit, but neither one's really to worry about there. Nothing crazy difference there. This one, I don't really see, I can't tell you who's going to win because Olsen has a 209, looks really good. KC looks a little bit better on the stats, but not enough to really justify taking them. Over underwise, I lean over with the 8.5 with the way the pitchers numbers and everything lines up, but the bats being slightly warm, but not enough to justify. So this one is going to be a complete pass. All right, next up, we got Seattle and the Yankees. Got Gilbert at a 307 and Stroman in a 333. Currently, we got the Yankees at a 135 favorite, over under 7.5, a little bit of juice on the over. Right now, the Yankees are on a 7-game winning streak. They're streaking. We like to see that. Seattle's lost one. Yankees are getting 5.1 runs a game, which puts them at 9th in the last week. Seattle at 3 runs a game puts them at 22nd. Yankees are batting 299, which puts them at 3rd. However, Seattle is still batting 248, which is 14th. Yankees are doing better on walks and strikeout as well. And they're going up against Gilbert with a 307 with a little bit under 1 whip, but then he does strike out a good bit. Stroman's pretty decent. I would lean the Yankees here. We're getting it 135 money line. I'm going to take the Yankees on the money line here. I'm going to pass on the over-under because neither side really looks good, and I don't have any props in this one I like. Next up, we got Baltimore and St. Louis. We got Kramer with his 372 against Gray with his 305. Betting markets have the Cardinals as a slight favorite at 125. Over under 7.5, a little bit of juice on the over. Neither team has any win streaks to worry about. Currently, both teams are top 6 in scoring runs. Baltimore at 525 puts them at 6th. St. Louis 5.8 puts it at 3rd. Both teams top 5 in batting average. 289 for Baltimore is 5th. St. Louis is still batting 307. Even after yesterday's debacle against Boston, they're still batting 307, which puts them at 2nd. Baltimore is 5th in strikeouts. They're just not striking out. However, St. Louis, they're 26th. They got 10.4 strikeouts a game in the past week, so they're swinging a lot. They're either hitting it or in scoring runs, or they're just striking out. Going up against Kramer, who does like to strike out people, 47. He's getting at least 1 strikeout an inning. That puts him at right at 5.8 strikeouts a game. We might need to look at his ladder as well just to see what he's doing, because anytime a team strikes out more than 10 times a game, you got to look at a pitcher who likes to strike out and see what those numbers are. Walks wise, both are in the middle of the pack, nothing to worry about there. So this one, I'm leaning the over immediately. Over under is 7.5. When you got two of the highest scoring teams, there the bats are hot, the runs are hot. I'm taking the over in this one. And then we're going to look at Kramer's strikeouts. Gray's strikeouts, I'm not going to like because it does the ratio looks good, 53-8. But Baltimore just doesn't strike out. 6 strikeouts a game over the last week. They're more disciplined. So I would lean Kramer's strikeouts. And the over and sidewise, I can't really look at a side because they're too straight even on numbers. So we'll just take those and move on. Next up, we got the Angels and the Astros. We got Detmers with his 519 going up against Valdez in his 295. Betting markets have Houston as a 210 favorite with the over-under of 8.5, a little bit of juice on the under. Main thing to see in this one is the fact that both teams are scoring runs. Angels are 4th in the last week at 5.6, and Houston is 4.83, which puts them at 12th. Both teams are top 10 batting average, both batting 271, 277. So they're both hitting the ball. They're getting runs. We like to see that. Angels are 2nd in walks. They're getting 4 walks a game. Houston's getting 3 walks a game. So they're both top 10 there. The only difference is Angels are striking out. They have 10.6 strikeouts a game, which puts them at 27th. Houston, 8.67, nothing really to worry about there. So looking at the Angels like to strike out, we have Valdez, he averages right around 5 strikeouts a game. Not really looking at a ladder there, so nothing really stands out there. But I am going to look at the over in this one, mainly because Detmers has been known to give up runs at 5.19, obviously. With both teams being so hot with the bats and so hot with the runs, I'm not leaning aside. I'm going to take the over 8.5 for this one, get that little bit of nice juice, and move on to the next game. All right, last game, we got the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. We got Man Supply 4.67 against Yamamoto at 3.21. Dodgers are a hefty favorite on the money line at 2.40 with the over under 8.5, a little bit of juice on the under. Main thing to see here is Arizona is struggling to score. 2.6 runs, 26 in the majors over the last 7 games. 2.22 average is 21st. Dodgers not too much better. 4.5 runs in the last week puts them at 15th, and 2.32 batting average puts them at 18th. Both teams are struggling to hit the ball. Even though we have higher ERA pitchers, but that at least makes me want to leave the over-under alone. Now, let's look at the money line side. 240 is ridiculous in this one. The Dodgers, yeah, they got more talent. They're considered a super team. They're better. But are they really 240 money line better? Yeah, they're at home and it's a night game, sure. But I might I think I'm going to throw the Dodgers in a money line parlay just for fun. I'm not going to take them on a run line. I can't do that. Just the stats aren't that good. They're better than Arizona, sure, but I'll throw the Dodgers in a money line parlay and we'll call it a day. All right, that's it. All 12 games broken down, given out. Drop a subscribe, like the video, comment below, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.